Okay, the first step in removing the stile is taking the bumpers off the door, because we need the door to sit as tight as it can against the stile. We're going to cut this stile and attach it to the left-hand door. So there's a little bit of a, we got about 1/8 of an inch overlay, so not a whole lot of room. So the first thing we need to do is pre-drill. So I'm going to come right here pretty close to that edge because I don't have much room to cover up the hole, and go at a little bit of an angle and go through. And then I'm going to come down to the bottom and do the same thing. So now when we shut the door, it's going to cover up those holes. So I like to use a countersink bit. I'm going to come around to the back. So now we're going to pre-drill here. And then the same thing up here. Okay, there's a few different ways that these are attached. On this particular one, the stile, which is what the centerpiece is called, goes to the bottom of the rail here, and then it goes all the way up through to this top rail. Sometimes there'll actually be, this rail will come all the way across and there'll be a seam right here. But when there isn't a seam right here, I like to come down and make my cut a little bit below it, because sometimes these rails aren't exactly level, and if you try to go straight across, it can come out up into one side or the other. But if you just bring it down like about 1/4 of an inch, you don't have to worry about that. So I'll just take a standard T-square and just bring it down about 1/4 of an inch. Clamp this on, just making sure I'm good and tight on the one side here, and that our reveals are about the same. And then when I'm doing this, I usually use a jigsaw, but unless you have a really nice expensive jigsaw, sometimes they can really wander a lot. So if you just use a good decent saw and just start real slow and easy, because you don't want to jump around and get marks all over the place. Now another thing that's important is the level of the saw, because you want to keep it as flat as possible. If anything, it's okay to angle it down slightly, because then it'll still shut. But if you angle it up at all, the back of the stile is going to be taller than this and it won't shut. So make sure you try to keep it flat, or if anything, just a little teeny bit down. Let's see how that looks. Take that off. We got a nice even cut there. Okay, on the bottom one, you can do it the same as you did the top. I'm going to use a jigsaw just so if you do happen to have a jigsaw, you can see how I use it. Okay, so I just line that up at the bottom, and then I bring the top down so it's just touching that. And then I put my clamp on. And then I just kind of get down and I go against the thing, but I also just kind of look and see my progress. I don't know if you can see right down in there, not very well. As you can see, it's a little handier to do with the jigsaw, a little quicker. Okay, another way that this center stile can be attached is with pocket screws. And basically you can tell those because they're just like little slots, and then they'll have screws in it. Most of the time they use a square head, and so you'll need to get kind of a long square head. You can just get that at Home Depot or Lowe's. And then you basically just stick that down in there. And then that entire piece just comes out. Sometimes after you take the screws out, it still will be kind of stuck in there a little bit, because sometimes they use a little bit of glue. In that case, I'll just take a little block of wood and I'll just go right above that seam, and I'll just like knock it out with a hammer. And that's all there is to it. Okay, sometimes you'll come across a situation where there's a full shelf on the second layer, and sometimes it'll be a fixed shelf that you have no easy way of removing. And the problem with that is you can't get into that screw because you're going to hit that there. So what I do, basically you can get something like this. They're at Home Depot. They're usually about 20 bucks. And it's just a 90-degree holder. So basically you just put your dealy bob in there like that. And then you can get down on that screw and take it out that way.
After removing the screws, the next step is to trim off a small portion of the bottom of the Stile. You only need to trim off the side where there are screws, otherwise it'll rub on the face frame. I usually take off about a half of blade width.
So the next thing we'll do is we'll take our 1¼ square drive screws and just put them through the holes here. Okay, then we'll just line up our holes that were pre-drilled. And I'll get the top started. Okay, then the bottom we'll just take and line that up with our pre-drilled hole.
And that's all there is to it. You've successfully gotten that Stile out of your way.